Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Will Takish, a librarian at the Albany Public Library. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the second annual collaboration between the Albany Public Library and the Adirondack Experience in this year's Dacks Dishes series. I'd like to start this evening's program by acknowledging that the Albany Public Library is situated on the land of the Mohawk, Haudenosaunee, and Stockbridge Munsee Band of Mohicans. The Adirondack Experience is situated on the Aboriginal territories of the Mohawk and the Abenaki communities. Indigenous people continue to live in the two regions and practice their teachings and life ways. Tonight, Dan Rivera was born in the Bronx and grew up in Lake Carmel, surrounded by family heritage of Italian and Puerto Rican food. He was introduced to amazing cuisine based on simple, fresh ingredients early in life. Dan and his wife Kimmy started Triple Green Jade Farm from scratch in the fertile and bucolic Champlain Valley of the Adirondacks. They built a wood-fired bread oven, purchased a stone mill to mill their own flour, started a grass-based livestock operation, and most crucially, built a loyal following of breadheads and foodies at the farmers market. Dan and Kimmy are now exploring agritourism, remaining true to their vision of creating an ecological farmstead which provides local food that mirrors the wild and natural beauty of the Adirondacks. Throughout this evening, please feel free to submit any questions through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, as the chat feature will be disabled. Time permitting, we'll take questions at the end of the program and as possible during the demonstration. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Dan, and I'd like to, big thanks to the Adirondack Experience and the Museum on Blue Mountain Lake, and to the Albany Public Library for inviting me to this talk. So tonight, we're going to talk about whole grains, how to get more whole grains onto your table. It should be fun. First thing I'd like to say is, we've been doing this for a number of years, but we have learned from a lot of other people along the way. Kim and I both got into bread by taking a class and, kind of learning about sourdough, learning about how to do things by hand, kind of traditional methods. We've traveled a bit and been able to take advantage of what others have done, kind of before us. So we're just kind of on a lineage here of whole grains, re-emerging kind of a local grain economy for everyone to take advantage of, because as I'll talk about, the Northeast was once a huge breadbasket at one point in time. So when we think of the local food movement, right, we often think of tomatoes and spinach and herbs, fresh fruit, meats and cheeses. But what sometimes or often gets forgotten is local wheat and local grains. So what we've been able to do, again, based on what things that have been happening in Maine, happening in Vermont, with local flours, is to try to get fill a niche area with local wheat, and also using wheat from local organic farmers. So the, being a breadbasket of local grain growers, that's what we're trying to bring back. One of the ways that we've done that, and it was, unfortunately during 2020, during the pandemic year, we were able to purchase a stone mill. And there's a company in Elmore, Vermont, that it's called New American Stone Mills. And they create traditional stone mills using Vermont granite. And because we had been baking breads and, creating crackers and doing all kinds of things, knowing that we had some local farmers growing wheat in the region, it was really, a light bulb moment to say, okay, maybe, we should step into this and see what we can do here, because it's just important to us to be able to source, we source a lot of our ingredients here, things that we don't grow here at the farm. We source a lot of ingredients from local farms and other food producers. So trying to get local wheat from farmers is also super important to us. And a lot of them are growing it organically too. So that's really cool. So first I thought I'd just show you the mill. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to step back here. So this is our stone mill right here. I'm just going to put my glasses on so I can see my screen. I wonder if I can make myself bigger. No, okay, I'm right there. All right, great. So yeah, so this is our stone mill here. And I have a bucket right here of hard red winter wheat berries that I'm going to show you in a minute. So basically, there's a 100-pound hopper up here, so I can load the berries up here. And then here's a little auger that spins, and it's going to drop the wheat down here to be milled by these two stones. So we have a bed stone. The bed stone doesn't move; it stays fixed. And then we have a running stone, and the running stone spins, and that's what there's grooves in each stone. And as you bring them closer together or further apart, you get a finer mill on the wheat, or you can get a coarser grind on the wheat. And if you put the stones really close together, you get a burning smell and a screech, and you don't want to do that. So you know, something you learn by when you first have a mill. So yeah, I'm going to take this last batch of wheat berries I have. I'm not going to run the mill tonight because it is kind of loud, and it might be loud enough in here with our refrigerators and freezers and all that. So I loaded up here. I'm going to run this later tonight after the webinar. So I just figured I'd show you that. And then what happens is we have a nice sleeve that goes over this port right here. You can see some flour coming out. And then there's a cover that goes over, and that goes right into one of our flour bins. And then we're going to get nice flour from that. So the kinds of wheat that we can get right now is actually pretty varied. It's nice. It's kind of every year it's a little different. It's very much I look at it as, you know, if anyone out there likes to make wine or, you know, get local grapes or something like that, every year the grapes are different. Well, every year the wheat is different. There are some wheats that we cannot use because they're not tested to be food grade. And I have what we do is, so any wheat that we get is tested. We don't test it, the farmer tests it for us. And they give us this certificate saying that it gives us lots of descriptions on the wheat, like the grain, the moisture content, the test weight per bushel, things like that. But the most important thing is something called there's a toxin level that it has to be under a certain amount. Without getting too technical, there's a blight, a head blight that can affect wheat, and it makes the wheat very unpalatable. It won't kill you. It just won't it will give your tummy some issues, let's say. But anyway, we use all the farms use UVM, University of Vermont. They have a testing lab, so they test all or can do testing services for all the grain farmers. And as long as your levels are below, it's safe for human consumption. And luckily, and obviously, we wouldn't, the farmers wouldn't be selling it to us if it wasn't food grade. But we get this, and it's a nice assurance. So let's start with the original wheat. And so, yeah, I have two cameras here, so I'm not sure. So this is einkorn, and you can see the berries are very small. And einkorn means one grain, right? So einkorn berries is the first, probably 10 to 15,000 years ago, einkorn was the first domesticated wheat. And I see some questions coming in. Okay, great. So basically, it is super high in protein, lower in gluten. A lot of the A lot of the early ancient grains are lower in gluten and higher in protein. So then einkorn has, it's, when compared to the size, it's hard to show right here, but compared to the size of some of the other wheats that I'll show, einkorn is very small. So while it's still popular in Europe, especially Italy, they still grow a lot of einkorn out there. It fell out of favor in the United States because it was small grains, super high quality, but probably less on the quantity spectrum. And that's a common thread throughout when we look at industrial milling and going from stone milling to industrial milling, and why those things, why these things are coming back into favor. They're coming back really because there's flavor in the wheat. So einkorn has a lot of flavor to it, really nutty. It makes really good crackers, or you can put einkorn in cookies or breads, of course. It's really good. So let's jump to rye. So this is the rye that I got recently from a farmer in Altona, north of us. His name is Dan Grew. It's Cedar Hollow Farm. So I just got some rye from him, and you can see the rye is like almost has a bluish, grayish tint to it. Rye is you've all had rye bread before. I mean, there's Danish ryes that are super dark and super dense, but super healthy as well. So we got rye. We use rye in like we do a caraway seeded rye. We use rye in cookies. So there's a lot to be there. And then you can see the milled rye looks like this. So take note of all of the little like brownish particles in here. So that is the bran and the germ of the flour. So these are the things that are usually sifted out so that you get a white flour. And if I'm going too fast about any of these terminologies or any of these types of flours, just let me know or let our coordinators know in the Q&A. But this is yeah.
Sorry, Dan. Could I jump in real quick with the question?
Yes, absolutely.
That somebody had. I didn't want to cut you off. One of our folks in the audience, they had a question. They want to know: is the interest in different local grains related to global warming because the usual wheat strains are potentially endangered?
That's an excellent question. There are some of these wheats that farmers are growing around here. Whether they're doing it full on with the knowledge of climate change. Some might be, I would suspect, but a lot of the times they are growing strains of wheat that are drought resistant, that are because it's being grown organically, they are like weed resistant and do not get they're hardier, so they're able to withstand some of these things, like I mentioned, like the blight, the fusarium head blight, and those kinds of funguses. So these are the types of wheats that can grow and thrive in our temperate region. Whether there are more drastic climate changes happening, I mean, that would affect, that would be bad, and that would affect everything. But typically, because these types of wheats that are being grown, like I said, drought resistance, better resistance to weed pressure, things like that, they kind of are beneficial as we experience more climate kinds of events. So I hope that answers the question there. Like this last summer, we had a lot of rain, and it was very wet July, and you're going to be harvesting some of your winter wheat in August or September. So that can put a heavy strain on the wheat, especially if the wheat stalks lodge, they fall over due to winds and heavy rains and things like that. So that doesn't make them so easily able to be combined. But yeah, so basically, yeah, it's trying to be able to grow food and grow wheat that is not only able to try to, take into account the changes in the climate, but also to grow things that we don't have to truck very far, grow things that are right here. If there is, severe shortages, we're trying to be more food resilient and those kind of things as well. And the fact that, I got one farm in Altona, I have one farm in Essex, I have a farm in Reber, I have there's a farm in Ithaca that we get certain things from. We get the einkorn actually from farmer ground flour in Ithaca because it's not really being grown right here. So, we all stay within New York State, but a lot of it is only like 10, 15 minutes away, their farms. So that's really good to do. Yeah. So yeah, no, great question. If there's more, please chime in. I'm just keeping a track of time. So, but yeah, so here really quick, here's hard red winter wheat. It's called Frederick. I'm sorry, it's called Expedition. It's called Expedition. So you can see it looks red, and that is similar to what makes red wine red. It's anthocyanins, I believe they're called. And hard red winter wheat means that the wheat is the berries, the kernels are actually hard. When I run these through the mill, it's louder than when I run the soft white winter wheat through the mill. The soft white it's a softer kernel, and they have different properties. So if I was to contrast these two, the hard red winter wheat is higher in protein than the soft white is. You can see the flex in there and all the good bran and all the good germ. Again, things that are usually sifted out when it comes to all-purpose flour, but these things provide so many good beneficial nutrients and minerals and flavor as well. Yeah, because none of our flour is sifted. This all goes in whole. And so here's a soft white winter wheat. And as I said, it's a little lower in protein than the hard red, but it also has great flavor. It's great in cookies, buns. It's not going to give you that high rise that you would want in a loaf of bread, but it's it's great in crackers. We use it in pie crusts, awesome pie crust, and I do have a pie crust recipe to share with you at that's on our website that we'll share. But yeah, is there any questions about the types of wheat that we're doing? I just want to say one or two things really quick about why we stone mill. So I'm just checking my notes right here. So obviously it's a centuries old, age old process that was, kind of taken out of favor due to industrial, faster, bigger roller mills, and industrial mills. There's hammer mills. There's all different kinds of mills that mill flour faster and may possibly cheaper than the good old stone mill does. But what there's always a trade-off when you look for faster, simpler, bigger, better, whatever, right? There's always a trade-off. One of the benefits of stone milling is that the flour is thought to be more nutritionally sound because the process, even though it's two stones grinding the wheat together, it's a gentler process. It's a slower process, and the main thing with wheat is heat. Wheat can be very sensitive to temperatures. You can burn flour if the mill goes too fast, right? Because not only because there's oils in the flour, actually, 10% of this little wheat kernel is called the germ, and the germ has some oils in it. That's what makes freshly milled flour. It's not shelf stable as a conventionally, enriched, bromated, bleached, sifted white flour. So there's temperature involved with industrial milling that can destroy some of the oils that are in the whole grains, and also lessen the amount of amino acids and vitamins that are available to us and to our guts. And we all need more fiber. I'm convinced of that. Fiber Fiber's the food that feeds our gut biome to make a nice, happy, probiotic ecosystem, all right in here, right? The cool thing too, like by trying to use more whole grains, you feel fuller faster. You know, you're lowering your glycemic index. White flour can tend to just be like a sugar rush to some people. So this is just, and the biggest thing really is flavor. When as we've switched to when we got the mill, and we've luckily we've been able to take our customers along with this whole grain journey, and they've enjoyed it, and I think we've actually grown, people who buy our breads and kind of are into our products and stuff like that, because we're using local farms, because we're using organic wheat, and because we're trying to use more and more whole grains in our baked goods. So yeah, there's just a lot of benefits obviously to it, but it is, a smaller, slower process. But for this size mill, for us, this is designed for like a bakery who's going to mill their flour, the night before, and then they're going to bake with it the next day. So the flour gets used. It doesn't sit around at all. It never goes rancid with, the oils that are involved. And those things translate into really good baked goods.
Dan?
Yes.
Could I jump in with a couple more questions?
Oh, absolutely. Please do. Because my volume on my phone is not great. So if you jump in and stop me, that's perfect.
Okay. Thank you. One person would like to know, how many pounds of grain do you buy at a time, and how long can you store it before milling?
Yes. So we in the summer, we buy a lot more than the winter just because of the volume of business. So in the let's say high summer, we're probably going through 300 to 500 pounds of wheat in a week, I would say. And again, this is all different types, whether it's rye or soft white or hard red. And now the beauty of wheat in this form, in the berry form, as long as it's dry and as long as it's not being baked in the sun, it will last forever. It will literally last forever, as long as it's dry, airtight, or somewhat location, because when we get the wheat from the farmer, they have to do a dry down period as well, and that just makes it stable. Because so basically, once this is cracked and made into flour, or cracked open for like a cracked wheat, if you wanted a kind of a denser product in your baked goods, once it's milled into flour, then the clock starts to tick. So because we do sell flour to customers as well, some freshly milled whole grain flour, and what we say is 3 months, as long as it's in an airtight container on your kitchen counter, 3 months, 6 months in the fridge, again airtight, and 9 months in the freezer. And you won't have a problem with any kind of the oils going rancid or nothing like that. So yeah, so as soon as if you have berries, they will last longer than you, maybe, as long as it's airtight.
Great. Another question is, what flour are you using in your spelt bread? Is it spelt?
Yes. So we're actually using spelt flour, and I have that right here. I don't have the berries. They look very similar to einkorn, and they mill up very much like the Frederick, the soft white winter wheat. So we use this spelt right here. I don't know if maybe you can see it better here. And again, lots of bran, lots of little flecks. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah. So Kim's helping me position the camera good. Yeah. So we use spelt. We use this whole grain spelt, and then so that goes in the spelt bread, and then we also use spelt to make crackers. So we have some sesame spelt crackers right here, and this is just spelt and a little bit of olive oil and sea salt and water, and then that's it. So yeah. So that's the spelt right there. And again, it's lower in protein. I'm sorry, higher in protein, lower in gluten. So we do have some customers, not celiac, but people that have some gluten sensitivities, they can really tolerate the spelt really well. I think because it's just lower in gluten. It's not gluten free, but it's lower in gluten.
All right, last one really quick would be if you grew up with just white bread and stuff, where would you start?
Great question.
Exploring, yeah, exploring.
Great question. In fact, let's answer that question now. So we covered all the wheats, we covered all that. So you want to introduce more whole grains or freshly milled. Now, I did put some resources on the website that show, this isn't available everywhere, obviously, but there are places that ship flour. There are places where you can get freshly milled flour. So if you're not local to this area, I'm sure your food co-op can definitely put you in contact with Farmer Ground Flour or Maine Grains. They also ship. They're really good. And there's more that I'm missing. There's Wild Hive Farm. But anyway, if you really want to start, this is how you do it. So on the page that we're sharing with you, that has some resources and it has a few recipes. The one that I like is that's really easy is a galette recipe, and you can also use the galette for a pie shell or a pie crust, and that's 100% whole grain. So you can check that out. But here's just a simple recipe for homemade dinner rolls. Right, I found this online. We've used it in the past. It works great. People love it. It's not a sourdough. It could be, but it's a yeasted bread. And so this calls for 6 cups of all-purpose flour. So you're wondering where to start. You could start as simply as substituting 1 cup of the 6 cups of flour for this dinner roll recipe. This would make, I believe this makes 24 dinner rolls. So yeah, nice for, you could freeze some and have some for dinner. Or if you had a big family over, you could eat, have them all. So it's as simple as that. 1 cup, you could do whole grain, like a soft white winter wheat, if you want to. And the rest could be all-purpose flour. Or, and then the next time you try it, you could do 3 cups of whole grain flour and then 3 cups of all-purpose. There are some tips and tricks when you're using a whole grain flour, though, that if you do up the quantities, you won't notice a big difference in your technique in like kneading the dough and stuff like that. If you do a small amount of whole grain, you will notice the whole grain difference though in the bread. And I have an example of that. So here's a semolina bread, right? This is a sesame semolina. It has semolina flour. It's hard to see, but there are little brown flecks in this dough, in the bread. And like I said, if using a small amount of whole grain flour, you can make a difference even in a more of what we consider like an Italian bread or like a whiter bread. Because in this bread, we're using a lot of whole grain flour in the pre-ferment or the sourdough starter. So we feed the sourdough starter for this, a lot of whole grain, but then in the final dough, it's going to get semolina flour. It's going to get some Mount Marcy bread flour from Champlain Valley Milling and stuff like that. But you can see that even just a little difference, this bread doesn't look as white or bright. It still has that nice beigey kind of brown color. And you might not be able to see it, but there are little flecks in there of the bran and the germ. So even just a little bit is fine, and you can start with that. But then as you raise your quantities of whole grain flour, because it's freshly milled, more than likely, because it has those other particles in it, the bran and the germ, which are, fundamentally healthy, and our body needs those things. Why discard those things? I could talk a lot about how whole grain flour actually pays more respect to the farmer, because we're using all of that stuff. We're not sifting it all out and throwing it away and using it for livestock feed or just. So anyway, I could go into that a lot, but we don't probably have the time for all that. But anyway, yeah, whole grain flour is thirstier. First off, it will want more water or liquid. For example, this one calls for eggs. I wouldn't necessarily increase the eggs on this if I was going full whole grain. but this also has some water in it, for example, so you can increase the water. This also has softened salted butter, so you could increase the butter by a bit. And oh, I'm sorry, this calls for warm milk, so you can increase the warm milk by a bit because it will be a little thirstier if you're using more whole grains. The other thing is it doesn't like to be kneaded too roughly. And the reason why is because all the bran and the germ, it does cut the strands of gluten that are forming when you have like a nice loaf of bread. So you have to take that into consideration. Professional bakers will do all kinds of things with like a whole grain flour. They can do pre-ferments. And like I said, the pre-ferment for this bread here, it softens by using the whole grain earlier in the process. It's sitting and combining with the water and the flour. And it's like softening all those sharp edges of the bran. The germ isn't really sharp. So yeah, so you want to think about that too. You don't want to be too rough. You can tear the dough a little easier. It's easy to tear if you're rough with a whole grain dough. This is great. Is there more question after that?
I think one more just came in. What's the best kind of yeast to use when making bread?
We use sourdough primarily, but there are breads that do get some yeast as well. And we've in the past, when we can get it, we do try to get fresh. They call it cake yeast. It usually comes in a 1 pound block. If you have like a hometown bakery, if you have a bakery nearby, they might be able to get it for you, like a bakery that makes, pastries and, cookies and muffins and stuff like that, maybe. So yeah, we definitely have used cake yeast in the past. It has a shelf life. You have to keep it refrigerated, but it is very, what are you writing there? What's my favorite recipe? Oh, sorry. Well, so yeah, so yeast. And then we also just use instant, those 1 pound blocks of like vacuum sealed yeast as well. Only because we, yeah. And those don't need to be refrigerated like the cake yeast does. And because we use more sourdough than anything else, it's, when we do need the yeast, we have it. We don't kind of have to worry about, it kind of going bad in the refrigerator if we're not going to be making a lot of those types of breads.
Great. That's it for the minute.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, my wife wanted to add it too on the recipe question. If you have a favorite recipe of cookie, for example, cookies are great to jump in with whole grains, because it's not like you won't be disappointed with a low rise like a loaf of bread, or being too dense like a loaf of bread if you're using too many whole grains. But you could jump in and do 100% whole grain cookie. In fact, I have there's a whole grain cookie on our website under Ellie Markovich's 12 Grains of Christmas. She does 12 grains, 12 different types of nice Christmas cookies using 12 different grains. And one of them is a shortbread sugar cookie. And it's great. We actually made that as part of our Christmas box to our customers this past Christmas. And it was beautiful. So, and that's just 100% whole grain cookie. Who doesn't love a little bit of sugar and a good cookie and whole grains? It's a great way to, it's a great way to, get that out there to more people. We do 100% rye chocolate pecan bourbon cookie, and nobody minds that it's whole grain rye and spelt flour in that cookie, because they're all thinking about chocolate and pecans and bourbon. But it does make, it has an interesting flavor. I mean, you wouldn't think rye flour would go, whole grain rye would go well in a cookie, but it really does. And it just exposes you to more flavors. Think about when farmers are growing different types of tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes, different types of spinach, different types of all kinds of herbs, because it's different than what's being mass produced, let's say, commercially. It's the same thing with some of these wheats. Frederick is a specific soft white winter wheat. Expedition is a specific hard red winter wheat that just seems to grow well here. So that those are some of the other nuances that you can get into. We're foodies. We love to eat good food, so it's nice to be able to experiment with wheat and kind of give give wheat its shot at the spotlight, because it's a great local product that could be grown by farmers, milled locally, hopefully. And, so what we're trying to do is get the human scale, local grain economy going for the Adirondacks, for our region. Getting this mill, working with the farmers, that has all really helped us a whole bunch. One thing before you have more questions, I highly recommend the new bread basket. The new bread basket, Amy Holleran. She's, just a long time, just a good friend and someone we've known, and, people out there really promoting flower ambassador programs and just cool stuff. So there's a lot of, not just breadheads around, there's a lot of just people into grains, and it's cool. It's very cool. Like I said, Maine, Vermont, we're trying to do our thing here in the Adirondacks and really up our local grains, and because it's good. It's good. It's no different than the local farmer growing really good spinach and tomatoes. It's, trying to get wheat out there.
Great. Somebody would like to know exactly where you located, and do you sell your sourdough starter?
Yeah, so we're located in Willsboro. We are, if you knew where Shelburne, Vermont was, where, like, as the crow flies, we're directly across Lake Champlain from them. We don't sell our sourdough starter because we give it away for free. So if anybody wants sourdough starter, we could probably ship it. Like, I could dry it out and then ship some to you, and then you have to kind of reconstitute it. But depending on where you live, I mean, we could definitely ship some. And the other thing too, it's really easy to create on your own, rather than going through the whole trouble of shipping something like that. Especially if you did live kind of far away, it wouldn't die in shipping necessarily, but there's tons of stuff on YouTube on how to create your own sourdough starter. It doesn't take that long, like maybe 5 days to get one kind of really going with like 5 minutes a day just to get it started. But we can work something out. We can figure something out depending on where you live, if you want. We also ship our crackers, and we ship some other things. So you can definitely check out our website for that. When I didn't do too much hands-on stuff tonight, because I just felt like it was just so much to cover as far as like, hands-on actually making a recipe and showing the finished product. So, but we do offer classes during the year here. Like, we have a 5-day bread class that it's very intensive bread class for anyone who's interested in that happens in September every year with a friend of ours who runs a school. And then we also do some fun events. We'll be doing more fun events during the summer, or later spring and summer and fall, for sure.
Great. Somebody would like to know, I think we mentioned kneading too hard. So they'd like to know if you can demonstrate the possibly kneading things too hard.
Sure. Yeah, that's a tough one. So I probably don't have anything to demonstrate it exactly, but what you want to do is if let's assume it's a loaf of bread, for example, or even just let's say it's these dinner rolls. When you're kneading it, oftentimes you can be really aggressive with a strong, high gluten white flour. It can be very, it's not going to tear. You can be kind of heavy-handed with it. What I'm talking about with when you're using like higher quantities of whole grain, like if you really want to try 100% whole grain, like the spelt, right? If you wanted to do that, then it's more of a series of it's called coil folds, or folding the dough rather than kneading. It's not really kneading at all. It's more of using time as an ingredient and like touching the bread, doing a short kind of fold. Or if you Google coil folds, you'll see it's kind of I could show it like this. So you're kind of taking the bowl like this, and you'll see you have just a nice little 1 pound piece of dough right here. You're just going in and scooping the dough up from the middle and kind of nestling the front and the back under each other. Then you turn your bowl 90 degrees, and then you do the same thing and kind of nestle the lips underneath each other So you do that once or twice, and then yeah, and then you leave it, cover it, and then leave it for, you know, depending on the recipe, it's hard to estimate. But like with our spelt, we leave it for 10 minutes, then do that again, and then we leave it for a half hour, and then do it, you know, less often until it comes to a nice rise. Yeah, I mean, if anyone's interested, we could try to post a video and then send that link out later to because I believe we have all the emails for all the attendees.
Thank you. So another person would like to know, have you ever thought about slicing the breads for the Saranac Lake Farmers Market?
Who wants to buy me bread?
Well, I need room for a bread slicer, first of all. They can be expensive, but we've thought about it, but we're not doing it yet. Whoever it is, I will buy them a really good sharp knife, and I can give lessons, or I'll be in trouble if I say yes, I'll slice your bread for you.
Thanks.
I'll be in a lot of trouble.
So what is your opinion on the best pan to bake in? Cast iron, metal, glass?
Okay, as a obviously in a larger bakery operation, breadery operation, we don't do that. We have a wood-fired oven, but we started using a what's right here. This is what we started with. These two right here. So any lodge or any kind of cast iron, fantastic for baking in a hot oven. If you can get your oven up to 500 degrees, great. Even 450 is fine. And then you can turn it down, obviously. You just really, the start, you want it really, really hot. And then we've also had great success with the Le Creuset. If it's really hot oven, you might need to take we have taken that guy off. But I think this is Bakelite, so I think it will be fine. Sometimes they're plastic on some of these enamel cast iron, but these two are great. They get super hot. You need good gloves. You can use parchment paper. That way you can transfer your loaf. But we love these. When we first started, we honestly, there's a Jim Leahy 5-minute, or what is it? No knead bread. The whole Jim Leahy no knead thing. Mark Bittman helped to popularize it years ago. That's what we did at home using this kind of setup. And we were just like, wow, this is really good bread. Holy, you know. And that kind of thinking like, okay, I wonder if we could learn more about this. Like, how do the professionals do it? And what are more traditional things? And what's sourdough? Because I would just use a little pinch of yeast and you let it pre-ferment overnight and just let it sit, you know, and you didn't have to knead it at all. So you could try a no knead whole grain if you have an operation like this, you know, a hot oven. What do they say? Like, it's like 10 minutes with the lid on, 20 minutes with the lid off, depending on the recipe. Yeah, so these work great. And I know there's lots of other stuff like Challenger bakeware. There's all kinds of other cool, exciting stuff that's available. And yeah, or clay pots also. I've never used those, but I hear they work great as well.
Nice. So somebody'd like to know, if your dough fails to rise, is there any way to resurrect it?
It fails to rise. Well, so it's just not rising at all. It's kind of like just not even doubling or even half that in size. Depending on what kind of dough it is, you could take that bread, assuming it's not too sticky, so not too high of a hydration with water. You could take that bread and have a sheet pan, or just like a cookie pan, let's say, and I put a little olive oil on that pan and make a focaccia out of it. If it's really not rising at all, or you could make like a pretty thick crust kind of pizza out of it. If you really feel like it's not going to rise, you could try that. A little olive oil, dimple it with your fingers in a pan, I don't know. It's tough to without knowing the full recipe why it didn't rise, or it could be too cold in your kitchen. Could be a lot of different things. But yeah, try focaccia or pizza. Put cheese on anything, it's great.
Oh, somebody would like to know if you've ever made matzah.
We have not.
I've never have. No. But I know there was someone really famous in Vermont, right? That was making matzah. Yeah. I forget the name of it, but yeah. No, we never have. We do a lot of challah bread, but never matzah. Kind of a specific cracker. They're very good. I enjoy them.
All right. Could you describe your wood burning oven?
Yeah, I can describe it. All right, we have a bunch of stuff in front of it, but we'll
Well, it's not a bunch of stuff.
bunch of
It's
stuff.
just-
Sure. You want to turn the light on too, and let's open the door. All right. See if this will work. Going mobile, everybody. Don't get too dizzy, and excuse our mess in here.
How does this work?
So here's our stove right here. So there's two doors. Just getting the light on so you can see inside. And let's see.
Yeah, we just had a fire.
Yeah, we had some pizza going on in there. But so here's kind of the inside of the oven, and it has an arch to it. And what you do is you burn a hot fire right on the hearth, and you wait till the coals die out, for example, if you want bread. And I can brush all the ashes and the coals down here. Here's a little ash dump. Whoops. Sorry about that. My camera's not really cooperating. So yeah, give you an idea. It's all fire brick, and it's a 5 foot by 7 foot hearth back in there. And I built it, and I'm always kind of making more modifications to it because I built it. But yeah, it works really good, and we can get about 30 to 40 loaves per bake in it. And yeah. Sorry about that. My tripod is not really cooperating. Fix that here. Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
Okay?
Maybe the Go Mobile wasn't the best idea.
Do they even see it?
I think
Lose
so.
them?
No, thanks. That was awesome. That was great to see that.
Sorry.
No. All right. So we got one more. We got someone would like to know, what do you rise your bread in? A stainless bowl, clay pot?
Well,
We use some big dough tubs right now. So yeah. Oh yeah. So we use like big stainless steel bowls. And then Kimmy's showing some of our dough tubs right there. So we have they're like big plastic dough tubs that we create the, mix the breads in and mix the doughs in. And depending on the size, we'll use like just stainless steel bowls for like buns. And then they go, and the bread will it'll actually proof in a banneton usually if it's like a sourdough loaf. And yeah. So banneton looks like this. It's a little home for the bread to proof in. Oh yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting. So yeah, so you got round ones, you got oval ones, and so the breads can proof in there. I don't know why it's not standing up.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
We're a little off kilter, but we're off kilter in most of the days.
All right. We got another one in the queue. Is everything baked in that oven? Even your cookies?
No, we just do breads in there. breads, pizzas, any kind of, we have cookies. We have a little, not little, but we have like a Blodgett convection oven that we use for like cookies, crackers, for buns, anything that can fit on a nice big full size sheet pan or sheet tray. We'll use the convection oven for that.
Great. Do you have a storefront at your bakery to purchase items?
We don't yet, but that's definitely one of our spring projects is to have a farm store where we could have like, baked goods available on a certain day. And then, cause we also have things like chickens available in season, and obviously Kimmy's crackers are a big item we'd love to have in the farm store and stuff like that, eggs, whatnot. And then have fresh breads available on a certain date that we're, baking them like the night before, could have them available the next day. So not yet. We do on-farm pickup right now, so people order online, and then we have it ready for them with their name on it in a bag in like a little closet kind of a thing outside right now. So people have been doing that, and that seems to work out okay. It's not a long-term solution by any stretch, but yeah.
Nice. Have you had any experience with using kombucha as your yeast and bread?
No, I have not, but I've heard of people doing that. And someone actually gave me a loaf, I want to say like 2 years ago at the indoor farmers market, friend of ours. And it was really, it was tasty, very tangy, and as you would imagine, with a kind of a soury, vinegary kombucha. So it was good. So I know it works. I haven't tried it myself though.
All right, we got a couple more as time's starting to wind down. When do you start your process so the bread is ready for the Saturday market?
So what we'll do is Thursday night, we will get our sourdough starter fed for whatever we're going to be baking for our bake schedule. So we'll get that ready usually Thursday night. And depending on the temperature, we might go in the fridge, or if it's going to be too hot in here, or it can just stay out in kind of room temperature for when we need it. So usually we're starting like around Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, and then Friday all day is pretty much, sourdoughs can take, especially in the colder weather, 8 to 12 hours from start to finish. So it's getting the bread oven ready and stuff like that. Also Thursday night or even Wednesday, getting it ready, just to make sure that things are hot enough when it's it's kind of a dance, but it's not a ton of work every single day, but it's definitely getting up to that day on Friday where that is the longer day. That's the big day. So, and yeah, and then usually breads are sometimes they're still warm on Saturday morning, depending on what time we go to bed.
If we go to bed.
Great. So how did you name your farm?
We found it on Craigslist, actually. Why do we name our farm? I'm sorry. Triple Green Jade. It's actually it's like a Chinese food dish, really, like snow peas, broccoli, tofu, and those kind of things. And I always thought it'd be a cool band name. I used to play in a band, and so the name kind of stuck with me. I love the fact of things in threes, whether it's the French Holy Trinity of wine, cheese, and bread is like one of our faves. So I'm born March 3rd. We just thought it'd be a cool name. Have like 3 different operations on the farm. We probably have a little more than that now, but it's really kind of 3. Kind of think of it, things in threes as far as earth, water, sky, and all those cool things that we're into. And 3 is the magic number for any Schoolhouse Rock fans out there too. So that's kind of what we named it. We wanted to be a little different, I guess. And I mean, maybe the name really came, the Triskel maybe came first before the name too. So everything just kind of came together in a weird kind of groovy way. So That's what we named it, rather than just like Mountain View Drive Farm or Mountain View Farm, or not that there's anything wrong with those kind of names. We just wanted to be different, I guess.
It's very creative, yeah. So somebody would like to know if you went to school for baking or to learn about baking, and if so, where?
Yes, we were very fortunate that we met up with a gentleman who lived in the UK. Kim and I lived in Norway for a couple of years. So when we were there was an artisan bread class coming up in Tuscany. So we got to take the week-long class with Carl Shavitz. He runs what's called the Artisan Bread School. And he said to us, I've had people take this class and actually go off and start their own, bakeries, but specifically to breads. He doesn't do kind of pastry. It's more just breads. So I was like, that sounds good, but I doubt that's really true. But lo and behold, that's what we decided that's what we were able to do. It also helped too that, Kim's family had a bakery in Indiana. I came to find out much later through like ancestry that my great-grandfather was a baker, actually Hungarian on my mom's side. So, we definitely have some of those roots, I guess. And we took that class, and Carl actually is the one who's teaching the class at our farm now. He started for the first time last year, and he'll be back this year. So it's the same class that he was teaching back then in 2010, 2011, something like that. So obviously going to Tuscany is a draw for anything, even if you're learning to do anything. But it's all muscle memory. It's all hands-on. There's no mechanical mixers. It's all by hand. Everything we do here is still all by hand. There's no mixers. So yeah, he taught us sourdough. We did sourdough every single day. We did some other breads too, but the focus was on sourdough. And that really kind of, it was delicious bread, of course. But that really, put the hook in us that, wow, if we were able to later in life do something, we knew that this could be something we could try to start a business from.
Nice.
Oh, and Kim wants you to know there's one opening left for this September's class. If anyone's interested. If there's any budding bakers out there. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so that's all we got for now.
All right, great.
So good evening, everybody. It's nice to have you join us, and thank you to Dan and Kimmy, and thank you to Will. I'm Cheryl Bronstein. I am the Director of Interpretation at the Adirondack Experience. And before we let you all go for the evening, we did want to let you know that we've got one more program in our Dacks Dishes series. It will be Stories of the White Corn Project with Angel and Lauren Jimerson, and that will happen 2 weeks from tonight. And then stay tuned for your emails and check Albany Public Library, check the ADKX website for information on our upcoming Dacks Drinks program, which will be a new addition to this series. So I will put the registration information in the chat if you want to grab it just right before we say good night. But again, thank you to everybody. Any parting words on your end, Dan, before we go ahead and sign off for the evening?
No, I just thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope it was good. Hope everybody enjoyed it. I know we covered a lot of stuff. So if anyone had any questions, they can email me directly. You can find my contact information on our website. We're happy to help. And yeah, thank you again. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for letting us taking a peek inside our little operation.
All right, and we'll see you at the farmers market. Thanks, Dan.
Okay, sure. Yeah, you got it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.